Vatican II really does provide the framework for what Benedict did in his pontificate, and probably the most notorious ecumenical or depending on your perspective, anti-ecumenical act was his move in 2009 to effectively allow disillusioned Anglican priests to fast track into the Roman Catholic Church. I was with the Reformanda people actually in December 2009, just after that thing went down. I went to the bookstore in the Gregorian University, and there was this long line of nuns queuing up to buy their little copies of the Anglican Ordinariate rules, and I think that came as a shock. But of course, it's entirely consistent with what's taught at Vatican II, or at least a legitimate interpretation of what's taught at Vatican II, and that is that Rome is the true church. There are Christians, we might say, and gatherings of Christians that exist outside of the Roman communion. And therefore, the agenda of ecumenism is to bring those people back into the Roman Church. I think Protestants, when we think of ecumenism, whether we're for it or against it, we tend to think of it in terms of mutually respecting coalitions of churches or bodies of believers. Rome, I think, is very clear and very consistent with its position over the centuries that Rome is the true church, and therefore ecumenism, whatever it may look like in practice in terms of how it's pursued on the ground, the end goal is that everybody is brought back into the Roman Church. And I think that's the key that a lot of Protestants miss when they engage in ecumenical dialogue with Rome. They think the agenda is to move to a tertium quid, something that's neither Rome nor Anglican, but a kind of accommodation of both sides. I think Rome, the approach is not that. It's to be accommodated, to be brought back in to the Roman communion, and that's where I think a lot of the tension kicked off relative to Benedict, because here we'd got this man who seemed to take Christian orthodoxy seriously, orthodoxy we share in terms of the great creeds of the church, and yet didn't realize that he's also actually truly Roman Catholic. And guess what? That means he thinks the Roman Catholic Church is superior to Eastern Orthodoxy, and actually a church, as opposed to what Anglicanism or the Orthodox Presbyterian Church, were he ever to hear of it, is.
Sure.
And that is simply a gathering of believers.
The baptized. So he'd see some measure of Christian there, those who have been baptized appropriately.
Yeah, they don't want to be Donatist on baptism.
Sure.
They don't regard Greg's church or my church or your church as being true churches.